All right. So welcome everybody. Anthony Nelson with Pivot. I'm here with Barb Casey, self-proclaimed marketing expert, guru, and just an overall badass human being. She's a wonderful person and great to be in the room with you today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Barb has been doing running our deep dive series on target marketing plans. And she recently did one that was on agents, correct?
Correct.
Yep. So last week was agents, and then coming up in a week, you're going to be doing plumbers.
Yes. A week from this Thursday.
Week from this Thursday.
Yeah.
And this is content that we develop specific for our members
Correct.
that are members of Pivot. Yeah. But today we're going to give everybody a little bit of a sneak peek. So then that way they get excited, create a little FOMO around what you're going to be talking about. Why don't you start real quick and just give us your background? Because you have a long history in the industry and doing business development in general.
Yeah. Thanks. It's really good to be here. First of all, thanks, Anthony, for getting this going. Gosh, my most recent experience has been with Kennedy Restoration in Portland. 22 years as the marketing director. I started at Kennedy with virtually no experience at all about restoration. But I came with a long background of sales and marketing information and experience. So when I got to Kennedy, I had a phone and I had a laptop, and that was it. And they really didn't have, at that time, a formalized marketing plan for a long time. And so I just simply took the concepts and the things that I had learned from my previous experience and brought it into Kennedy. It was all based on a couple of things.
Okay.
Communication and customer care.
Yeah, I noticed you chose your words carefully for customer care. Tell me why.
Well, because customer care is where you establish such good rapport and communication with your clients that they literally put you as their go-to person for everything. As an example, last night, Sunday night, I have been retired for June, July, August. Oh gosh, almost 4 months from Kennedy. And I received a phone call from one of my previous clients. And she asked me some questions about restoration. Her house was leaking. She wanted to know who to call. And I told her, call Kennedy. She didn't realize that Kennedy did residential also.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And so I told her to call Kennedy, and I explained to her what I thought it was. And my point to this was 4 months later, she's calling me and wanted to know who she should talk to at Kennedy, this and that and the other. And so that's what I mean by customer care, so that they consider you to be the expert in the industry, not because you know it all, because I don't.
Yeah.
But because you take the time to help them with it and explore some options for them. And this has been going on from day one. When I started, I quickly realized that the restoration industry, like almost every other industry I had been in, was a very highly challenging industry. I've never been in an industry where it was simple. It's always been extremely challenging, and restoration was no different. And the way we would set ourselves up apart from everybody else was really simple. Communication and customer care. That's it.
All right. Well, tell me, since we gave customer care a nod, why don't you tell me what you mean by communication, right? Like, because when I think of communication, it's, oh yeah, we just let everybody know what's going on, right? But I think that you mean something more. I'm a knucklehead ops guy. Like I started, you talk about 22 years ago. That was my first year as a technician in the industry. So, just to give you, like, I recently graduated high school and was sucking water out of basements and dishes. So,
I love it.
What do you mean when you talk about communication?
as simple as this. If you say you are going to call somebody, you better call them. And by God, if you can't get to a phone or you can't make that phone call, send them a text. Immediately send them a text. Even an email is not going to do it. If you promise someone a literal phone call and you can't make that call, then you need to send a text to alert them that you can't make that call and why. That's the very basic of it. The second strata of it would be if you've told someone that you are going to get them information because you didn't know what the answer was, then you better get them the information. You better get them the information. And what this kind of translated into was eventually the team at Kennedy started to really send emails every day on jobs and every week on rebuilds. All the time. The communication was excellent. But it took a while to get everybody on the same page to realize how important that was. But I'm telling you, it's a simple, I mean, if people just understood communication, their job would be a piece of cake. Yeah. It really would be.
I love the conversation on how lead generation happens inside of our industry because, there's all these strategies about how to go and make the phone ring, right? But once you've made the phone ring, literally all you need to do is answer it and say, yes, we'll be there as soon as we can. That side of the coin is always very, very easy. But I find that funny myself.
Yeah. And then after that, we're on our way. Oh, then what happens? A lot of stuff happens. And the balls can be dropped. And you're on your way and the balls are dropped. And it's unless you have proper communication with your production department, your operations department, nothing is really going to get off the ground from that first call. You won't get a second one.
Awesome. Why did you end up in business development? And you get to speak to this from a unique position in the fact that you're recently retired, right? So you have both ends of the career, Genesis and Revelation.
Yeah. Well, actually, I started as, this is going to crack you up. I started as a receptionist.
Okay.
And I just, I could handle all the calls. I mean, I was really young and I handled all the phone calls and they started to see, my God, this woman can handle all these phone calls, incoming lines and get everybody calmed down and all this. And then I finished up my degree. I went to University of Oregon for 2.5 years. And then I decided I better leave while I could still, think. And so I finished at Portland State. By the time I had my degree at Portland State University in marketing, I went on into sales. First, I was in customer service for Owens Corning Fiberglass, which is a large manufacturing company. And then I was promoted to sales. So I always look at business development kind of differently than everybody else. I look at business development as a two-pronged thing, sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And I loved sales. I really got it. I spent a short while selling freight, if you will. I had to find freight in California to load onto flatbed trucks coming to Portland.
Got it. Okay.
And there was no manufacturing plant in California that made materials that could be going on a flatbed, but I found it. And that was that's where I really cut my teeth. And then I went into the Yellow Pages, the Ma Bell Yellow Pages. And I sold there before I was promoted to sales manager. So a lot of my work was sales. But to me, it was different. I quickly realized that I wouldn't be successful in sales unless I developed a relationship with my clients. And how I did that was kept them in touch with everything that they needed to know to be successful advertisers or successful freight, freight shippers or anything like that. Successful with Owens Corning products. It was all about the customer relationship. So, after a very brief stint at what is now Belfour, but at the beginning was Pacific Catastrophe, I approached Kennedy because I had done my due diligence on competitors, and I did not like the direction Belfour was going in. Once they bought Pacific Catastrophe and took over, I went, I don't like this. So I contacted Kennedy, and we just got together and had a great conversation, and I went to work for him.
Nice.
And I took all of that sales and business development and everything, and I put it all under the umbrella of marketing because that's where my study was. And marketing has always been the umbrella over sales, over promotion, over anything doing with business development.
Nice. I always say nobody was sitting in the sand. None of us were in the sandbox at like 5 years old going, oh, I want to do property restoration, right? Like, kids dream about being a fireman or, an actor or, like my daughter's like, oh, I want to be a veterinarian. I want to help fix animals, right? But nobody's sitting there like going, oh, this is the kind of work I want to do. So how'd you end up in the industry?
Well, I was approached in the mid-90s by two gentlemen that had started a company called Rocky Mountain Catastrophe.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. And they opened a branch in Portland called Pacific Catastrophe.
Okay.
And they came to me and they wanted me to join their team. And I said, no, your business plan is not sound. And so I went on, they went on, and then let me think, about 3 years later, they got a hold of me and they said, we'd like to meet you again and discuss our business plan with you. And I did. It was good.
Nice.
So I said, I'll come and work with you. I was excited. This was a startup. I was going to just start the sales and marketing departments for them. And we did it. We were making inroads. I was really excited. We were really small, but I was taking business away from Kennedy and it was fun. And then,
it feels good to win.
Yeah. And then Belfour bought them.
Yep.
And I went, uh-oh. And it took me like 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
They're too big. They're too, I don't know. They were fine, but they're just too big.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to go. The reason I came, though, to begin with was two reasons. Number one, I was excited to get into a company that was on the ground floor. And I could basically write all of the processes for them. That was the first thing. But the second thing was the excitement of going into a completely different industry and meeting these people, meeting the clients that I felt would benefit from our services.
Okay.
And I had to figure out really quickly, Anthony, well, how do I do this? I've never done this before. So I realized that, okay, a residential home has to have an agent. A business has to have an agent.
Yep.
Go after the agents.
All right.
That's what I did. At that time, I did call on adjusters. So I would say, okay, claims have to be managed. Who does that? Adjusters. Go after the adjusters. So it was just really kind of a common sense approach. And then Larry and I, my owner, we were talking about, hey, we only have 30% of a commercial base right now of our total. That's where the money is. He said, bring me commercial business. And I said, I will. It's going to take 3 years. And he said, why 3 years? And I said, because I have to get in. I have to infiltrate.
Yeah.
These are people, these managers, they don't cotton to someone just coming in and saying, take my business. They have to be, for lack of a better word, sold.
Yeah.
And he said, you got it. And it did. It took 3 years. And well, we got some stuff in between, of course.
Yeah.
But then it just started to skyrocket and steamroll down. And we had the commercial business and we flipped it. By the time I left, we were 75%, sometimes 80% commercial and, 20% residential, which was what we wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if I'm a restorer out there and this is my first time going to market directly to agents, how should I start? What should I do first?
There's 2 things that I did, and this still stands to this day. Every major city and every rural city has a chamber of commerce. In Portland, we call it a business alliance. For the most part, one of the selling points of these chambers has been to provide a book of lists. Okay. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. And in that book, they will list the 25 top agents, 25 top property management, residential, property management, commercial. But I got that book and I looked up the agents. So I said, okay, here's the 25 largest residential agents in Portland. So that literally was my starting point. Then I went to the Big I, the Independent Insurance Agents and Brokers of Oregon, but it could be Independent Insurance Agents and Brokers of Ohio or Illinois or whatever it is. I quickly made friends with them. And I got in to see, okay, who are the agents that belong to that association? I got a list. And then I just started phoning. I started calling.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any fear of calling because I had done that before.
Yeah.
So I just started calling people and establishing who I was. The name was Kennedy was pretty well known, but they didn't do any business with Kennedy. They had just heard. And then I started offering some value-added things. Like I offered CE classes. I became registered in the state of Oregon to be an instructor of certified education for the restoration industry. So as long as I was working in the industry, I could teach classes. So I had 3-hour, 2-hour, and 1-hour classes available from all sorts of restoration topics. I started marketing these to all the insurance companies. And pretty soon I was in everyone's offices and doing lunch and learns and CE classes and taking people out to lunch, the decision makers. And it just went from there. But it was the book of lists in my case. It was the independent insurance agents trade into the whatever, and then dialing and calling people. And I wasn't afraid to ask the hard question, like, who do you use? Why do you use them? Have you ever thought of using Kennedy? Why or why not?
Yeah.
I'll never forget when I asked an agent one time, have you ever thought of using Kennedy? I'll never forget this. It was not my finest moment. I would not recommend this at home. But I said, why haven't you ever used Kennedy? He goes, oh, I use Kennedy. I used them 20 years ago and they really screwed up my job. And you know what I said, Anthony? I said, oh, for God's sakes, that was 20 years ago. Give it up. He used us again. Yeah. And guess what? We screwed up that job too.
Oh, no.
You can't make this stuff up, but it was fun. It was great. And, I figured, well, we tried it. We just are not clicking with this dude. So we'll move on to something else.
Right on. I know for us, when we went to open our Honolulu shop, the state of Hawaii maintains a registry of, because the agents have to be licensed, right? And so we were able to get in and use that database to develop our lists and understand who was in the market. Now, it wasn't prioritized, right? Like it wasn't top 25. We got everybody and then had to sort through it and figure out who was worth targeting and who was, writing policies for their cousins out of their basements and stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then what has changed over the years, right? You've been doing this quite a long time, relative to marketing to agents. What has changed and what hasn't changed? I'll give you both.
Okay. The thing that I think has changed the most is the complacency of agents to use their 1-800 numbers for claims.
Okay.
Back when I was starting, they didn't do that. Progressive did it, and it was not cool to do it. And that was unfortunate because, it was fortunate back in the day because we didn't have to worry about that. So that's the biggest change, their lack of wanting to be involved in the claims process. And it is a big deterrent to their success. I'm here to tell you. They may write a lot of business and not have to worry about the claims end of it. But in the long run, I'm a homeowner. And if I can't get a hold of my agent, if I've had a fire, I am furious.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. What hasn't changed, the younger agents that are coming into the business, they want to do it the old-fashioned way. They want that client contact. Don't you see that, Anthony?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they want to be involved. I got an email from my my agent the other day. How are you doing? I've been looking at your policy. Everything looks good. Don't worry, we don't need any changes. But I thought that's impressive.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something. This same agent is someone that I used to teach CE to. I used to teach CE classes to him back when he was starting. And I taught a lot about taking care of your client, taking care of your customer. So
he's probably sitting there going, I better take care of Barb Casey or it's my ass, right?
No, I'm really nice. I'm not. Oh my God.
On the topic of agents, one of the things I always like to ask agents is, what's your total cost? Like, what's your cost per lead, right? Because a lot of their businesses operate on generating leads that they can follow up on.
Yes.
And like most companies that are selling directly to consumers, their cost to acquire leads has gone up significantly over the years. And so that becomes a great transitional topic to go into. Well, then you must be very focused on retention. When somebody has a claim, how do you make sure that you retain their business?
Excellent. That's excellent. Another thing that I'm sure you have found too, if I can be as cognizant and as informed about their industry as much as I can, in other words, if I can talk logically and reasonably about loss ratios, if I can say, well, the latest information on loss ratios of blah, 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 I did some research before I go in and see them, especially a new prospect, because I wanted to show them that I knew their business almost not as much as mine, but close. That I could talk knowledgeably about it.
So if somebody's watching this today and they don't know what loss ratios are, how would you explain that?
A loss ratio is just what all the claims that come in and how it affects their balance sheet, how it affects every agent needs to make money on their renewals. That's where their biggest dollar comes from. But if they have a loss against that renewal or against renewals as an aggregate, then their dollars to themselves is not going to be as high. They want to keep their loss ratios lower so that they bring home more money. And it's interesting. They are charged for their loss ratios. at least in Oregon. Do you find that out, Anthony?
I honestly don't know. I haven't
Okay.
asked the question.
Yeah. So they want to keep them low. And I've explained to them that the best way you do that is to get involved.
Yeah.
If you can get involved from the get-go and keep the claim down, the problem is let's say it like with this example of the client who called me last night. This leak has been going on for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
So already there's mold building, already is buckling floors. That claim is going to be high.
Yeah.
And had they called early on, it would have been lower. So it's all about keeping the losses down.
We one of the things that we were known for is like doing temporary repairs so folks could stay in their homes, because a lot of Hawaii is, condos and high rise and that kind of stuff. And if you can keep somebody in their condo unit, by and large, it's usually a better solution. I think there's this misnomer that when people have a claim, they want to maximize it and stay in a hotel, but 80 to 90% of people just really want to stay home. They don't want their life interrupted. And so we would do that.
They don't want to stay in a hotel.
And what was interesting is I was having a conversation with one of the local carriers that we did a lot of business with, and they were telling me, hey, look, every single time we call you guys, reliably, you are 8 to 10% more than your competitors, right, on the reconstruction costs. And I said, well, yeah. No, I understand that. And that's part of our business model is we write comprehensive scopes and we do a little bit of extra on these temporary repairs. And yeah, sometimes we have to set a vanity twice. But what is the impact that you have on your adjusted living expense, right, on those claims? And so it was like, that's a fair question. I kind of put him in the crosshairs, and he stepped back for a second. He comes back and he's like, reliably, you are 20 to 25% less on ALE, and the dollars shake out overwhelmingly in favor of the way you do business, right?
There you go.
Yeah. And I always love that when those things shake out, because I could have been dead freaking wrong,
I know, right?
No, it doesn't matter. In fact, we're still more expensive on the ALE. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, no. You have to be careful. What's that old saying that attorneys have? Never ask a question that you're not sure about the answer.
I would make a horrible attorney, because I ask a lot of questions just out of the curiosity of my mind. And I get some answers that I'm like, wow, I should have kept my mouth shut, man. No, that was a bad question.
I do it all the time. The biggest one I do is, what did you think of Kennedy when we took care of you?
Yeah.
And oh my Lord, I am bombarded with stuff. And that's okay.
You'd rather know, right? Like I always say, if you're operating from a position of truth, you can always move forward. Yes. It's when we don't know what's true that we have a hard time moving forward.
That's right. I would rather know all of it. I can deal with all of it. You need to know everything you can. You can't figure anything out. You cannot pull the wool over a client's eyes. You have to be able to know all of the information before you can help them.
Absolutely. Yeah. We used to do a thing. We know that restoration is flawed by nature. Like it is an environment that is ripe with problems. And so you're going to have service level failures no matter what. Like on your best day, something's going to go wrong, right? There's too many variables. A lot of it's outside of your control. And so we used to tell, our technicians, our claims coordinators, our business development people, you have to have the type of relationship that affords you the opportunity to make a mistake. And I'll know that you've done your job in earning that client's trust when they call you with a problem. And so we had an incentive attached to that in our meeting rotation, where if a client called a technician, a customer care coordinator, whoever, with a problem, all they had to do was fill out a form and talk about it at the meeting, and I would give them $50 because I'm like, you did your job, right? That client called you, and then I would actually pin the teams against each other, playfully, of course, but like, oh, they called the technician. Why didn't they call the customer care coordinator? did you not earn their trust and that opportunity to make a mistake? And then it became this competition, right? It was this playful thing back and forth between the office and the field. But I completely agree with you there.
I had a really good setup at Kennedy. I have to tell you, he really set me up for success. We had a person who took down all the job information. I very rarely had to take down a lead for a job. People would call me during the job if they felt like their estimator wasn't listening to them, or their production coordinator wasn't listening to them, or the water tech wasn't getting it. Then they would call me. And that was really the best time for them to call me, when they were having a problem. Because then it set me up for success. I would say, I'll get right back to you. And I would go to the people that I needed to go to, get an answer, and call them back. I look like a star. So they're going to give Kennedy the next job, because they all thought my last name, for years, people thought my last name was Kennedy. Seriously. They thought, up until probably a year before I retired, a lot of people in this town thought I owned it.
I had the same problem.
See? Yeah, that's a good problem to have.
Exactly. All right. Changing gears.
Mm-hmm.
Plumbers. If I'm a restorer out there and I'm saying, you know what, there's opportunity for me to go solicit and get leads from plumbers. Where do I start?
Well, at Kennedy, we didn't do plumbers. So what I've learned about plumbers, I've learned in the last year that I've been involved with Pivot. What I have learned is basically the same concepts apply. Again, get your list. I don't care how you get it. If there's an association that you can belong to in your city that deals with plumbers, and I know there are, then join that. And if you have, and get your numbers that way, get your lists that way. If there's a book of lists, and they have them, that lists your plumbers, get that. And then just, and do your homework on them. So I would search their websites, see how sophisticated they are. And there's a lot of variants. I've looked up some in Portland, and they're pretty weak. And then go just do it the same way. It's not rocket science. This is what I guess I want to say. Now, I dealt with plumbers at Kennedy because they were our go-to plumbers. And I approached them and asked them, do you want to refer to us? And of course they would. So I had it easy that way, but I never had to reward them with dollars. And that's what bothers me. What I'm finding from a lot of the folks I work with in Pivot is that some cities are paying huge amounts for these referrals. It's like it's going up, up, and up. It's kind of like we're missing the point.
Well, and what's interesting is restorers are now opening plumbing companies so they don't have to pay the referral fees anymore, and starting to go basically cut out the plumbers.
Yes.
That was the strategy that we tried for a while, was at like marketing ourselves on Google as a plumber. And then when we got the call, I would refer it out to a bunch of different plumbers and just kind of beat them at the source, because that was cheaper than paying the referral fee.
So did you just add your 10 and 10 to that then? Or your profit to that, your 10%?
No, we just did a straight referral, because it was pretty easy, because we would say, hey, look, like typically insurance does not pay to fix the source of the loss, only the resulting damage. So you're going to pay this individual directly. Like, I don't want anything, right? Like, here's the list of 3 that we work with. They're all very good. They're qualified. They pass our subcontractor agreements, so we know they're solid organizations. Go ahead and call one of these 3 to get your plumbing source fixed.
So you didn't do it for them?
No. because
did you ever get pushback from people that said, well, you're not a plumber if you can't handle it right now? Why do I have to call somebody else?
yeah, sometimes, but
Mhm.
far and few between. Most of
Okay.
the time, people were happy to have you connect them with somebody that they could trust.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. No, it's interesting because our deep dive, not this week, but the next week, is on developing a target market plan for plumbers.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing a lot of research before we have that call because I know what I would do if I was responsible for getting business from plumbers, but I want to put it in, I want to execute that plan so I can help people do that.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's really this, it's the same as agents, portfolio managers. The only difference is the little idiosyncrasies that are pertinent to their industry.
Yep.
So for instance, plumbers, you can't go call on a plumber at 10 o'clock in the morning.
No, they're already
Because
working.
they're gone.
Yep.
You have to find out, okay, are plumbers, are they responsible for getting their own jobs or are they just shot out from a dispatch? There's a difference. Is the owner of the plumbing company the one that you really want to target? Would he be the one that you give the referral to?
Yep.
And what about your referral? I've seen everything from $500 to a sliding scale.
Yep.
Yeah, for a size of job.
And my, so one strategy that we did that worked really well was to partner with the Fergusons, like the plumbing supply warehouses,
Yeah.
and catch the guys as they're coming in to get their parts in the morning.
Yes.
Simple stuff. Like I'm always a big advocate. You feed somebody, you get their attention. And so
Yes.
we fry bacon and flip pancakes and
Yes.
just keep it simple. But
Yeah.
those strategies worked. And
Yeah, but
what we found was plumbers, they did respond well to some sort of incentive. You could drive volume by paying somebody $500. But what was more important to them was making sure that they were referring somebody that they could trust to take care of their clients the way that they would take care of them.
yes.
And so whenever I engaged in a conversation with a plumber, and I would always ask them, okay, so when you call us, what should we do? How should we take care of the clients? Like, how do you take care of your clients? Can we mirror that? Oh, that, would draw parallels between how they manage their clients and how we managed ours. So then that way we could build trust in that relationship. And a lot of the times they would give us the opportunity and the work, not because we were paying more money than one of our competitors, but because we had that underlying trust between our organizations, and they knew that we were going to take care of their clients and preserve their brand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty basic. It's really hard though. The people that I've talked to that are working with plumbers, and I've had the advantage of working with some people that just started in pivot in their companies. And again, it was like, for instance, there was a friend of mine who works strictly with plumbers right now. And she said it was really hard getting going and she was having a really tough time. Well, she called me the other day and she goes, it's just starting to go. It's just starting to come to fruition. And I said, what do you think changed? And she said, nothing's changed. It's just the consistency.
Yep.
It's the consistency. And that's the key with plumbers. I think it's consistency.
Yeah. It like being able to stand in front of somebody and be like, yep, nope, I'm going to be here flipping pancakes, frying bacon next month.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere.
And bringing things in to their weekly or monthly meetings. I mean, it's amazing how many meetings these people have, plumbers have.
Really?
Yeah, I was really surprised. But, and then there's trade shows. There's trade shows, there's opportunity at plumbers associations, there's opportunities at other trade shows where you think plumbers will be. It's worth it to try it.
Yep.
When I started, I tried everything. I threw everything against the wall and looked at and watched what stuck. And that's what I stuck with. Some of it didn't stick. That was okay. So I'd go on. It just depends on how hard you want to work. and and you have to have drive. I had a lot of drive.
That's
A lot of
clear.
drive. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to spend with me today and educate everybody on, target marketing plans, developing them, strategies for agents, strategies for plumbers. Is there anything that you would want to say to close out our conversation?
No, except I would like to ask you how you're in Honolulu.
I'm actually in Maui.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Where?
Upcountry, Makawao.
How are you? How is it going on West Maui? How is it? Pretty bad?
Yeah, not good. I mean,
Yeah.
like good, but not good. It's been a difficult period in, our local history to be a part of, frankly,
Yeah.
because this is a place that reliably, is pretty joyous and, has a lot of community and everything like that. And whenever you have an event like this, things tend to get a little divisive. I will say that the way that our community responded in the aftermath of the fires, like there were so many grassroots movements, so many wonderful companies that stood up and did everything that they could to support the people of Lahaina. And I have never been more proud to be a resident of Maui in my entire life. Like that has been truly heartwarming. I spend a lot of time dispelling all the wonderful conspiracy theories that have been generated about how the fire started and missing children and all these other things. And I can tell you that if it sounds too bad, it probably isn't true. And you know what? Oprah's roof is not blue. There are no lasers. Like everybody's just doing the best they can, and that's it. And it's just freaking hard.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, it is one of my favorite places, and I've spent a lot of time in Lahaina, and it just breaks my heart. I did have a cousin who has a home in Kaanapali, and she went there recently, and they needed to check on their condo, and she said it was quiet. There weren't very many restaurants open, but she did volunteer to work.
Yeah.
And she was told that, thank you very much, but we have so many volunteers, we're good. And that was so wonderful.
Yeah.
Maui is so lovely. And I just say to people in closing out this call, go to Maui, but stay on the Kihei side or over in Hana and stay off the west side, just for now.
Yep. I would completely agree. My wife has a business that relies on tourism, and that's part of our family income. I'm fortunate that what I do doesn't really rely on tourism, so we're stable personally. But there's a lot of folks that are hurting right now because that economic opportunity isn't present, and when 80% of your GDP comes from tourism, need people to show up.
Yeah, you do. Sure. And go. I mean, it's beautiful. So do that. And other than that, it's just good to see you. And I'm glad that we have this time together.
Yeah, me as well. Thank you so much for your time, Barb. And I look forward to seeing what you do with the deep dive and plumbers. And let me know if I can help in any way. Okay.
Oh, I will. Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.